Last time on Zero to Hero, your boy Sil was trying to beat Soto so he can farm wizard coins. How far did he get in the last 10 hours and what could be his next steps? Find out this and much more on this episode of Zero to Hero. Before I get into it, Marikai suggested that I start off these videos with a Guild Wars 2 efficiency account value snapshot, which I felt would be a good idea too. So thanks for that, and here we are. Since the last video, I started this week at about 1.1k account value. So before we get into how far I've gotten, I have got to say that Soto is by far my least favorite story to go through. Like, I get it if you enjoyed it, it's up to personal preference. However, if this was the first expansion, like if Soto was the first release after the core game, man, this game would not have survived. The saving grace behind this X-Pack is that there already exists like 10 years of other content to fall back on. Maybe I'm just dumb or I haven't really evaluated how to get gold out of Soto materials, but I can tell you that my only gold gain thus far is pretty much from the Wizard's Vault. And because my goal was to blast through Soto to get through to these special achievements to get the 300, 400, 500 Astral claim bonuses, I'm going through the entire story. A lot of these items are great for building out legendaries. A lot of them are great at giving you raw gold. I ended up cashing the 90 gold cheap Astral Acclaim bags, and then I cashed out the Mystic coins and sold them for about 103 gold profit, which for the most part is kind of low just because the Heart of Thorn bonus event is going on, which is flooding the market with Mystic coins. So that puts me at about 200 raw gold, and I can get another 100 gold plus from the laurels, which that is what my sights are on for the next item out of the Wizard's Vault. So based on one of the questions I asked about the sky scale, the popular consensus was to do the Soto method, which is great. However, I do need the Rising Spirits mastery, which is at the end of the sky scale mastery line. So I'm nearly complete with that. Speaking of the sky scale, it is by far the best mount in the game. I feel like most people would agree with that. However, I do want to give you guys some of my thoughts on the mounts and where my mount goals are for this account. Every mount in the game is pretty good and it has a unique job to do. The bunny and the jackal are probably the least used overall for me and therefore my least favorite, but my mount goals are pretty simple. First off, the raptor is already given to me. Getting the long jump mastery and the pull on dismount would be nice, but it's kind of low priority. The skimmer with underwater movements is pretty critical, and the griffin is going to be my next priority item after the commander's tag, which I'll circle back to the commander's tag in a minute. But the last mount that I'm prioritizing is actually the roller beetle. So the griffin, the skimmer, the roller beetle, and the sky scale are my focus targets, with the raptor being fifth just for fast farming. The reason I'm prioritizing these mounts after I finish up the Wizard's Vault is because these are the key mounts that will fast track map completion for this account. And getting a Corteria map completion done will really help with funding, since most of you felt that legendaries are a pseudo requirement to be classified as a hero. My goals for this account, where I can comfortably say that I've reached hero, are one legendary from each generation. So generation 1, 2, and 3 legendary weapon, one set of legendary armor at minimum, which I am going to be completing the first set through raids, and completion of all 100 fractals and their CMs, which by the time that goal is accomplished, it's likely to include whatever new one is introduced. Some of your answers to this question were pretty wild though. Like, I might as well delete my main account because I will only be playing this account for like the next 5 years. Like, y'all really don't want me to stop making these Zero to Hero videos based on your answers. It's crazy. Raid challenge modes might be a thing. I'm not saying I'm not going to do them. I'm not saying I'm going to do them, but I don't really have all of them complete on my main account, and I don't really feel like joining prog groups or sweat groups since most of them don't even run when I'm playing. The reality is that as the king of pugs, I will be completing all of these goals with pugs, which I feel is the real challenge mode, especially on the NA server. Which brings us back to the commander's tag. and why I am so hell-bent on getting a tag. It's actually a pretty simple answer. Because I play at odd hours. The majority of the footage that you see in these videos are me playing anywhere from 4:30 a.m. to about 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, and very rarely do I get to play outside of those hours. Excluding weekends, which on Saturday mornings I can comfortably play until around 8 or 9 if I'm not making videos for you guys. But at those early hours, the LFG is dead. Raids are dead, strikes are dead, fractals are usually slow if they're not dead. So by having the commander's tag, I'll just make my own group. I did a video titled Getting into Raids as a Beginner where I pugged Wing 1 in about 50 minutes from hosting my own LFG, and I did it at those odd hours early in the morning on a weekday. On the Mesmer, I should be able to fill all the critical roles I need, so I won't be stuck in LFG looking for a tower chrono or a tank for the most part once I get my other gear sets, which leads me to my next point. The Wizards Vault did a great job of setting me up with a starting set of gear, and in all likelihood I will still have a incomplete set of ascended gear by the time the quarterly reset happens. However, I fully intend on gearing my builds with drops from raids, fractals, and strike missions, which if I can host them myself, I can comfortably clear them regularly and it will drastically speed things up. Once I get the gear sets, it's only a matter of time before I get legendary items. But for now, I need to finish the Soto storyline, finish the Sky Scale Mastery, and the collection to unlock the Sky Scale. And in the meantime, once I run into the inevitable time gates for provisioner tokens or anything like that, I should be able to at least start raiding, start working on the raid armor collections, finish up the masteries in Heart of Thorns, and work towards other priorities. With that being said, let's get into some comments. Lucas asks what my approach is to grinding mastery experience and if there are activities that I prefer over others. And this is a great question. For the most part, I'm not really running into an experience bottleneck, but a mastery point bottleneck. Since I am actively playing through the story, I find myself filling up the bars pretty quickly. And in Soto, for the most part, they force you into doing a bunch of rifts, events, or other things. The only thing I've gone out of my way to do are meta events, which is something that also rewards a lot of experience. So I'll probably be going back to finish mastery points, to finish the Sky Scale Mastery in Soto, but I think that's more of a bottleneck in like other areas of the game. Path of Fire is remarkably experience barren in terms of events and stuff, so maybe I'll be doing bounties for those. I'm not really sure. Going through the story and evaluating the content as I go is something that helps me enjoy this playthrough, since I haven't actually interacted with the game like that for a long time. I think I will be going back to Heart of Thorns for some masteries next, and then to EOD for the Arborstone revitalization, so that way I could start collecting the antique summoning stones, and then Icebrood Saga to get the chest stuff done, so that way I can increase my gold generation from IBS strikes. The last thing I'm going to say about this is that the Wizards Vault mastery coffers are always an option. I know that people don't like to value those, but if I ever do run into an experience bottleneck and I just want to get things done and I have extra astral claim, I'll just buy those. But I haven't really had to rely on those just yet. My man Dust corrected me on buying Berserker's gear, and it turns out there are named sets for each weight, and for whatever reason I couldn't find it. I could have saved me some money. I knew about Devana's gear, but I didn't consider checking the wiki beforehand, and I just typed in Berserkers into the trading post like a complete noob. And now you know that if you need Berserker's gear, you can get some Zed's armor or Devana's armor or other named armors for Berserker stats. In a similar vein, Exo asks if there were named assassins pieces, and I can comfortably say that the answer is no. There are only named exotics for Berserker, Carrion, Clerics, Dire, Rabid, Rampager, and Shamans. So if you need assassins, you're SOL. My man Pete says that being a hero to him is not being gatekept by LI or Killproof, which means that I will be a full-fledged hero after getting my commander's tag and getting carried by some pugs, boy. I'll be like going from 0 to hero in like 40 hours. Jokes aside, I know what you mean. When Nightmare Aspect came out recently, I was having a hard time with groups, and I had Dances with Demons, and I also had Fractal God, so I was basically joining groups like this.
You have experience.
I have quite a bit of experience. Not, like exactly doing it, but I've studied it. And I talked to people who have done it. I've seen the videos, and I feel very confident that with my knowledge, I could do it, no problem.
Lastly, before I ask you guys some questions, FaZe B asked me about Staff Mirage and its viability, which I actually made a standalone video going over the Staff Mirage build that I personally run, and I feel like it's fun even though it isn't exactly top tier anymore. So if you are interested in that build, check the video out. Overall, I think most open world builds work pretty well, and I do fully intend on getting this character a build set up like Staff Mirage so I can comfortably solo open world content. And there are many times in this playthrough that I got downed or actually wiped in story instances. Mesmer isn't exactly the tankiest or easiest to sustain, especially when you have glass cannon gear like I do. So eventually I'll be getting an open world setup, but right now I don't want to use a booster. I'm trying not to boost. Eventually, when we are a little further along, I will be boosting on some of my all characters, but right now I am focused on getting raid gear for the main character. But if you want to know about this build, or this is the first time you're hearing about it, check that video out. I know FaZe B already saw it, but if anybody else wants to know and see it, it's there. I did solo 2 legendary bounties, so it's safe to say that the build still worked fine. So I love seeing your guys' takes on the questions that I asked last time, and I'm hoping to get some interesting responses this time as well. First things first, I'm going to talk about the expansion rankings. So I talked about Soto being kind of blah after going through it first. So here's the question. In terms of content, what expansions or living world holds your favorite content, and how would you place the other ones in comparison to that one? I also don't want you to forget about the core game. I know that there's at least one person who watched this to this point that is an avid dungeoner. I will be answering this question myself in the next video. Some of your answers might actually change my mind on some things, so I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. And secondly, if you had to delete one elite spec from the game entirely, what would it be? It could be one that you hate, it could be one that you think is problematic for balance, or it could be one that is overutilized by the community. It is ultimately an opinion, so have fun with it, and I will also be answering this one on the next episode. With that, I want to thank everyone who wrote a comment, answered my questions on the first half, and a special thanks to all of my subscribers. I read all of the comments and can definitely tell who is a regular here on this channel, so a sincere thank you to all of you guys. If you dig it, drop a like, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I will see you all on episode 5. Peace.